All right, everybody, welcome back. This is Sick Talks number 80. I'm here with Ryan Babenzien, who is a longtime associate and friend, and in a weird way, somebody who has inspired some pretty interesting developments in my life, which we'll talk about apropos of Breakfast Club and that sort of thing. But in the meantime, Ryan's is the CEO of and founder of Jolie Skincare, which is a company that I've watched with great interest since before it was launched. Even I saw one of the fundraising decks, I think, and which I think has a really unique take on beauty. But Ryan is also like exceptionally well informed and observant about his space, the media space more generally, brands and brand development, and also is not afraid to speak his piece, as we've seen on some viral LinkedIn pieces this week, which we'll also talk about. Anyway, Ryan, welcome to Sick Talks. How are you, dude?
Yeah, good. I'm well. Good to see you. It's been a
Nice to
long
see you.
time coming. I'm so glad I finally got the invite to appear on Sick Talks.
Yeah, well, it's like to quote Jacques-Amy Mugatu, it's weird how it switches like that. No, in any case, so Ryan, credit where credit's due. You were the person that said when I said in October 2021 that I wanted to start doing breakfasts again. You said, "Oh, you should make it a recurring thing," and that was how Breakfast Club ended up becoming a Wednesday thing. Those who aren't familiar, there are now breakfast series all over the world, in fact, inspired by that comment that Ryan made, which was go every Wednesday and invite people every Wednesday, and then you can have a regular thing. So thanks for that inspiration.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that one statement was so influential in your decision. And if that's worthy of taking credit, then yeah, sure, great, thank you.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I'm sure you know this. Like, so guys, just to back up a little bit further, Ryan and I met when you were at CAA. Is that right? One of the talent
No,
agencies.
I was at ICM, but I think we met
Oh, okay. ICM.
when I was at K-Swiss. I think that's when I first met you. Or
No.
Puma. No?
No, it was the agency, and then you went to K Swiss
Yep.
after
I
the
went
agency.
ICM Puma. I went ICM Puma K-Swiss. We
Yeah.
met at
So
ICM. Oh wow,
yeah,
that's a
yeah,
really long time ago.
yeah. We had a meeting in LA, out in yeah, we had a meeting in LA when you're at ICM. But in any case, w- w- you probably have had this happen to you. I certainly have, but people come up to me occasionally and say, "Ben, you gave me a piece of amazing advice, or you said something that changed the trajectory of my career, or that thing you used to say has guided everything that I do for years." And I have no recollection of the thing that they're talking about. Like some comment that I made to
Some
them
profound
randomly somewhere.
guidance.
Yeah. Well, but but I think that's it's illustrative of kind of the world that we live in, which is why your fame on LinkedIn over the last couple of days, but really for months, or for maybe the whole history of Jolie, is so interesting to me. It's like expertise now doesn't have to come from any one particular place, right? It doesn't have to come from some vaunted expert. It doesn't have to come from an institution of great knowledge. It can come from just common sense, or it can come from a truism that you find online. And I thought that your comment about Breakfast Club was really illustrative of that. So anyway, you've changed my life.
Ah,
Thanks.
man, thank you. I just like to bless people. You're blessed, man. Well,
Thank
no,
you.
and the funny about the LinkedIn stuff that you're talking about, my
Yeah.
recent fame, it really is. I use LinkedIn as a education tool for my peers more than anything, or more of
Yeah.
an experience, a communication in my experience, and in hopes that educates and gives somebody some insight in what they're trying to do as it relates to starting or building an early stage business.
Right.
And more recently, what you're talking about is sort of me calling out Saks Fifth Avenue, which Jolie was owed $15,000 for almost a year. And we really wrote that off. And my post wasn't to stir the pot. It wasn't to like target Saks as like you're evil. It was to sort of tell like a seller beware story. Like, hey,
Yeah.
everybody, I know we live in this omni-channel world. You got to be careful, right? This is what we went through, and I want you guys to be aware. And it was at that point the most widely read, commented, shared post I had ever had
Mm-hmm.
on LinkedIn, and it clearly sort of touched a nerve that inspired three different articles from Retail Drive to Wall Street Journal.
Right.
And ultimately, we actually got, within 10 days, we were paid in full by Saks Fifth Avenue.
Yeah.
And I wound up, I don't know if you wanted to talk about this, but I wound up giving that money away
Yeah.
to a to a brand in need, because we were very fortunate. We had written it off in terms of we never thought we were getting it. So when we did get it, we just thought there was a better use for a smaller business who was also owed money by Saks, and we gave that away on Monday. So
Yeah.
it was kind of cool, like that whole arc of the story.
Well, I look, I think it's super cool in some respects. It also is. I mean, I think the idea of being, vulnerable and forthright in that way on LinkedIn as a business platform is newish. Not for you, but for people in general, I think. And I look to you as being one of the real, like, great practitioners of the strategy. And I don't mean that in terms of this Saks thing, right? So, as Ryan noted, and when we'll have this linked in SIC Talks, or in SIC Weekly, excuse me, made a post about having been owed money from Saks, made a post about having been paid the money from Saks, and then having written it off, wanting to turn it around and be helpful to somebody else, and then having made another post about paying this off to another vendor who was also in arrears and needed the money more so. Like, that stuff is all, it's all amazing, but it also is after 2 years or so of you making really regular posts on LinkedIn about the state of Jolie's business, where you are in terms of your COGS, where you are in terms of your CAC, where you are in terms of your, retention rates and all of this sort of stuff. And I wonder what motivated that, because when you started it 2 years ago, it was not a thing that a lot of people did, I don't think. And you've always struck me as somebody who was ahead of that.
Yeah, well, I just, the macro view on sort of e-commerce and primarily digitally native brands is wrong. It's flawed. I just think we've
In
been
what way?
doing it. They don't make money for a
Okay.
variety of reasons. Okay. And that's a problem, right? Because these businesses need to make money. They need to make money, employ people. They have to work. And
Yeah.
like, I'm not going to get into the why of the VC model that sort of inspired this behavior. That's a separate talk,
Yeah,
but
for sure.
nobody was calling it out. Like, like the way we're doing this, people, is wrong. I'm going to attempt to show you a different way. And I think this way might be a path or a map to how to think about operating your own business, whether you have one today or about to start one. And the only way I knew how to do that was to sort of like walk the walk, right? Like, just sort of
Yeah.
be super transparent and like say, this is what we're doing. Here are the results. And that started to gain a lot of interest. Like, I'm advising quite a few companies. A lot of that came through
Yeah.
my LinkedIn posts, where people are just realizing, I have some experience. There's not, I thought about this recently. There's not a lot of people on the planet that have started a business, raised capital, and exited to a multi-billion-dollar publicly traded company.
Right.
I happen to do that with my first company. That puts me in this sort of unique experience category, right? Where there's millions of people with MBAs. There's very
Yeah.
few actual people who have built these things. So I just felt that was really valuable to others. And I wanted to sort of share that experience plus my new experience
Sure.
with Jolie. And that's where we're at. That's why I started doing it. And hopefully it's helping, somebody.
Well, I mean, I look, I would say it probably is, if nothing else, to remind people, like, whatever you don't know, it is fine to acknowledge what you don't know. It is also fine to work it out in public, and like, exposure to community will help you in some regards. It also, I think, and the success of Jolie is testament to it. It also illustrates the kind of the power of the formal idea in the first place. Like Greats, the brand that you co-founded and exited to Steve Madden, um, was based around, and correct me if I'm paraphrasing here, but was based around the insight that the premium sneaker market was going to take off, and that a great product could be made for significantly less than what the market leader Common Projects was doing at the time, using the same sort of similar kind of Italian margam sole, similar premium construction, similar minimal design, etc. Um, the insight with Jolie is that beauty starts with your skin and your hair, and that water is at the root of that, right? So if we fix the water, then we fix beauty and that sort of thing.
That is
Um,
correct on both sides. Yeah.
it's I think the thing that's interesting about the way you go about the LinkedIn stuff and just generally your let's call it public persona as a founder and investor, et cetera, is that it's like you could have a brilliant idea, and both of those are very smart ideas, or very smart insights that lead to good ideas. But if you're not in the minutia of the execution forever, it the idea isn't valuable. It doesn't mean very much. And so the
It
fact that
means, yeah, that's very true. There are so many good ideas that I've heard, had, and then even like experience like good ideas failing as a business. And the idea is really just a fraction of the success of a
yeah,
business, and maniacal execution. And I'll just use the word maniacal. There is certain things that businesses need to be successful. It is a rarity, like an anomaly of anomalies, if it succeeds and it doesn't have those things. Hype,
right,
so you can sort of make this you can make this argument in fashion where like the operational team is a total disaster, like absolute shit show, and yet the business has done so well because demand and hype is so great that it covers over the operational inefficiencies.
sure,
That's an anomaly. Then
yeah,
nobody should sort of try to create that, right? The
right,
other way, though, and this is sort of where you see consistent successes, is an average idea that's just executed really, really well.
yeah.
And the first business taught me a lot about execution and operation and efficiencies, and how do you build an elegant business, right? That was sort of,
Hmm.
that's the word we use in Jolie. Like, we have a really elegant business.
What is okay? So talk about that. What does elegant mean as you think of it in that way?
Well,
Because
I've,
it's
I've created
I
this.
love the idea, but elegance can mean lots of different things, especially as translated through the lens of business.
For me, what elegance means as we speak to Jolie is we're solving a really big problem with a simple product in
Mm-hmm.
nature that's used every day. And therefore you can do that in a way where you don't need this massive team. You're not, responding to trends. And beauty has a lot of trends, and they come and go really, really quickly, just as
Yeah,
quickly
of
as
course.
fashion. But like, we look at it as like the anchor to your day is your shower, regardless of what your process is after that. So
Sure.
that's elegant to me, right? Like, this is a really elegant, simple operation that solves a big problem. So having simplicity and massive problem is sort of rare, right? They're just,
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I can't think of many things. So that's why we use the term elegant. And um, I don't think it can be applied to many things. Red Bull, I would call also an elegant business. It is, for the first
Interesting.
20
Okay, I want to
years,
hear
they
about
had,
that. That's because
yeah, well,
yeah,
I'll,
go
I'll
for it.
say it because I look at it as, for the first 20 years, they had one product, literally one product. They didn't even have sugar free. They had the full
Right.
blown Red Bull Heavy, or whatever they call it, um, in one fucking size. So there was
Yeah,
no
yeah.
redevelopment of packaging. There was no formulation changing. And they built a multi mega billion dollar business off of one product. That is elegant and hard, right? Because how do you create something so big off of a single product?
Hmm.
I call that elegant in terms of business operation.
Okay.
They've
All right. So
diversified. They've got millions of other things. We know them as a content company. All of that is sort of later, but one product, simple business, massive
got
scale.
it. Okay, so I'm starting to get to to understanding how you think of elegance, because what you're talking about is elegance of operation. In other words, it is smooth, it is effortless, it is free flowing.
It's not effort. It's not effortless.
It may
It's
appear effortless or friction
it's more
free.
efficient. It's more
Yeah.
yeah. It's more efficient. It
Okay.
just is.
As opposed to an elegant idea, which I think Jolie is. I'm not sure that Red Bull is an elegant idea in terms of the way that business is put together. Just knowing that it's like what your marketing, you've essentially built an entertainment company off of a consumer packaged good, and that's there's a leap there that I think
Yeah, but
becomes much more effort than elegance.
I don't know the economics of Red Bull, but my guess is that the golden goose is still the
Oh
juice in
yeah,
the
yeah,
can.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So the entertainment component is their marketing, right? Like that's sort of that's what they've always done. And they've done it exceptionally well now for what, 30 plus years,
Something like that. Yeah.
which is, and it all started with a formula from Thailand that, they diluted and put carbonated water in it. That's fucking elegant to me. Like that is just
Yeah, yeah.
brilliant. And but I am really talking about the operations of the
The elegant
business, because
operations. Yeah.
what that means, like upstream, is production. It gets simpler, shipping gets simpler, packaging, all cost of goods come down. Reverse logistics, no returns. Now they're in a consumable business, so those things don't apply a lot of times. You're not returning, the soda you buy if you don't
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah,
it.
for sure.
But you have a lot of repeat business in their business. But that's not what I'm talking about. It's just simpler to operate,
Yeah,
as opposed to, hey, let's have a new product every quarter, which is
yeah,
what fashion is, or
yeah, yeah, yeah,
footwear.
sure.
Hey, every 90 days we need new things that may or may not be the same as the last quarter. We might have
Right.
totally new silhouettes, new sizes, new shapes, new patterns, new
New
fabrics.
suppliers, new
That is
customers,
not
etc.
like the least elegant business I can think of in the world is fashion.
Which is an interesting juxtaposition of ideals, right? Because we think of fashion as being the ultimate elegance business because it provides us with elegance personally. But yeah, okay. So that I think everything you just said really explains a lot about the stories that you chose this week to dive in. So
Are you
ostensibly,
breaking me down, Freudian breakdown?
no. I'm looking for a clunky transition over to the newsletter. No, so the ostensible purpose of these conversations for those who are new to them are to track stories from my weekly newsletter on Thursdays that my guest thinks are most interesting and jump out. And Ryan sent me 5 stories from this week's SIC Weekly that jumped out at him. The thing that struck me about your selections, Ryan, is that most times when I get stories back from people, one will be from entertainment, one will be from tech, one will be from Brat Summer or whatever the current zeitgeist moment is, one will be from food, and one will be from fashion, just for argument's sake. All of yours are from, let's call them, business operations. And
Hey man, I'm
and
a one trick pony. What
I
can I
no
tell
no
you?
no well that's your words, not mine. But the thing that I thought about that was, it was just like, okay, clearly you've are seeing the world currently through, or are most interested in looking at things through an operational lens. And I just find that fascinating because I think many of the people that I get on here, I think of you as a creative person, but in the same way as I think of all of my guests as creative people. I wouldn't talk to you otherwise. But it's a creativity that operates in a different sort of realm or vector, and so I just thought that was interesting. All right, so you picked 5. Which one do you want to start with? We've got the global supply chain, we've got the Walmart Target debacle, we've got 7-Eleven rebranding in the States, or reshaping in the States. We've got the man in finance, which I guess you could argue isn't entirely operational. And then you've got generosity as a strategy, which again, you could argue isn't operational, but ties very specifically into
It's
the
fresh. It's fresh
operational
in my
side.
mind.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want to, let's start with that one, the generosity one.
Okay. This is a Rashad Tabakawala, who was the chief strategy officer at Publicis for many years and is now a independent consultant. He writes my least favorite newsletter to cite in SIC because it has the longest and most ponderous title in the world, which is "The Future Does Not Fit in the Containers of the Past." Rashad, if you're listening, please change the title of that newsletter. It's a pain in the ass. Um, but the title is Generosity as a Strategy. What was it that struck you about that one?
Well, it's just something I've been thinking a lot about lately. And I have to tell this sort of, I'm going to make this long story short, but I have to
Okay.
like tell you where it's not that it began here, but it's really struck me and stuck with me. Earlier in the summer, I had to go on a business trip. I had to fly to California and I'm out here in the Hamptons and I'm like, look, it was an early flight. I wasn't going to just drive myself, park and go. So I took a car service. Normally, getting a car service at 5 a.m., I'm going to get in the car, fucking close my eyes, sleep all the way to JFK, and off I go. Well,
Yep.
this time, this guy just was super engaging and just started talking to me. Like it's still dark out, and we spoke for 3.5 hours.
Wow.
Okay. He's from Tunisia. He's over here trying to make money. He's got a wife and kids. He had a regular job. By the end of this thing, I knew a lot about him, and he knew a lot about me. So on the return, I requested the same driver. The first thing he says to me when he picks me up, he's like, hey, I got really bad news. The traffic is horrible. It's going to take us 4.5 hours to get out there. I'm like, great, let's go. Off we go. And he starts telling me this story of how he goes to the same car wash a few times. You know, he's a driver of a black car service. And he's like, I go to the same place because there's this young girl that works there that, just had a baby, and the guy she had the baby with literally took off and went back to Mexico, and she's stuck there by herself. And I go there so I can give her a big tip every time I get my car washed.
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, this is a driver. Like, I don't know what his income is, but I'm imagining it's not all that high.
Stupendous. Yeah.
Right. And I'm just thinking, I knew he was a great person, but now I'm like, this guy is just, it reinvigorates my belief in humanity when I
Sure.
meet somebody like this. And I'm a skeptic, and that's rare that I get to this place, right? Then he finishes the story and he's like, I went this morning and I had just taken out $800 because I was going to send it to my wife and kids in Tunisia because there's a big family event. And I lost my wallet and I went back. They found the wallet, but the money was gone. And I'm
Oh,
just like,
wow.
oh my God, this guy goes to this one place so he can tip the girl, and he drops me off. I gave him an $800 tip. And he like immediately calls me like 3 minutes later. He's like, hey, I think you made a mistake. I'm like, no.
Mm.
He's like, this is way too much money. I'm like, his name is Mayor. I said, Mayor, you just told me the story of what you do. I'm like, I can do this for you. Please
Yeah.
accept it. And that's a long way of saying, like, it just reminded me, like, when you do nice things, it usually comes back to you in ways
Yeah.
that you cannot even possibly value, like account
Sure.
for. Like, and I just felt really good doing it. Like, it felt really nice to be able to do that.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
it sort of probably triggered my recent thing with it, which we did, with our Bloomingdale's thing. And I just think that
Sacks.
idea of
Sacks.
like, yeah, sorry, Saks, sorry, Bloomingdale's. Uh, so like generosity as a strategy,
Yeah.
I think is something, we probably don't spend enough time, exercising.
Yeah, well, it's so funny because it's like people tell me all the time about Sick and about Breakfast Club. They're just like, "Thank you for sharing this stuff with me," and I'm keeping myself sane and getting to see my friends. Like that's all that it is. It really is not. There's no great strategy of generosity, but it you sort of realize the way in which those making yourself available in those small fashions can be massively impactful for people. So yeah, it's cool.
And to cut to like the real result, the series that so originally I told you that the first post on Saks was my most read engaged.
Yep.
The last post I did of giving the $15,000 where I said I actually gave this away, that one was the most shared, read,
Yeah. Yeah.
engaged. So people, this was not the goal, but I probably have acquired more community goodwill in one simple act
Yeah.
for $15,000 than I could have ever done if I hired a PR team, donated money to university, and like did all the traditional things.
Yeah.
This I feel like was far more appreciated within the community, and probably will ultimately yield more value. Not that I was doing it for that.
No. But that's kind of the point. It's like if you do these things and people react to them in ways that you don't anticipate, but that are ultimately beneficial, generative, and I don't know what, like hopefully fun, right? Like that's the other thing to me about it. It's like your gift to Mayor is, it's a significant thing, but it was also a fun thing for you to do, I would imagine, right?
Yeah,
Not
it was
just fun.
fun. It was just
For
fun.
me to do, right? Like these are fun things.
I'm giving it all away, Ben. No, that's not true. That is absolutely not
I
true.
like this. Ryan Babenzien, the
Philanthropist.
I was going to say the Warren Buffett of natural beauty. We'll continue to wish you great success as you build to that Warren Buffett like status. He is a good 50 years older than you, so you have some time.
Yeah, I got I got some runway ahead of me. I hope I can make it that far. Jesus, good for him.
Oh man. Yeah, it's funny that it was, just as an aside, somebody posted yesterday on Instagram that he had just turned 50 and he was looking forward to 50 more. I don't know if I'm in that boat. I don't know if I want to go 50 years. I'm feeling like, another 40 maybe.
Listen, with technology accelerating, especially in sort of, life extension and more importantly, the quality of life.
Yeah.
By the time you're 80, you might have you could reverse it by 20 years by then.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, well, look, there's your simple, elegant idea, and your nice like lap over with the Venn diagram of venture capital is where the extending life, the blood boy, all of that sort of thing. Anyway, we're not going to get into that right now.
Blood boy? I didn't even want to ask. I don't even know what that means.
Oh, come on. You've seen Silicon Valley. You know what that is. It's the
yes,
the blood transfusion thing.
Yes. I thought the Rolling Stones did that in the 70s.
Well, I think that was about passing drug tests. I don't know. That was
I thought it was about getting better because he just did so much heroin that he needed more blood.
There's that too. Although I'm sure there's some medical study somewhere that says, no, the heroin blood is actually what you want. This is what we're going for now.
Yeah, that's what you need. Just a little bit of heroin, like 10%. Don't do drugs, kids. They're horrible. Don't do that.
Do not do drugs until the FDA approves them in a non-controversial study. Did you read about all of that? Like MDMA being rejected by the FDA because the study was like imperfect.
Yes, and the FDA is a paid-for agency that nobody should really trust, and it's part of the reason Jolie was able to do what we do. I mean, the FDA well, they're meant to sort of monitor what's in the water, and they failed at it. Like, so
I see. Okay.
They're not enforcing things. At the same time, you can get better sunscreen in Europe, but you can't buy it here because the FDA has sort of banned some of the things that they use there. And then there are known carcinogens in some of the stuff we are able to use here. So I wouldn't use the FDA as the pillar of truth and well-being.
Not in the least bit. I just want MDMA therapy
to be legal.
People.
Okay.
I want it available for people. So yeah.
I've got some MDMA in the house if you need it. No, I don't. Also a joke.
Yeah. So far, Bloomingdale's, the FDA, cops.
If this isn't your number one viewed show, I don't know. Then I shouldn't be here.
Okay. Well, listen. I mean, we've had some guests of some significance on here.
I'm sure you have. I'll be lucky if I make it into the top 100. If I can get into the top 100,
fortunately for you, you're already number 80. Like right off rip, you're number 80.
Oh,
So
we're 80. We're number 80. Oh,
this
cool.
is number
So I
80.
broke 100. Great.
You're in top 100 at least for
Perfect.
another 19 episodes.
For 20 days. Great. Great.
So, all right. Well, let's talk about some other ones. There were a couple of stories. You sent me a story. Speaking of, let's call it like service economies, right? Like the black car service or the car wash. One of the services that has come out, particularly since the pandemic, has been these kind of grocery delivery, personal shopping type of apps through, let's call it a DoorDash or whatever the case is. And you sent me a story from Business Insider about how there are starting to be Walmart stores, and I see it around the corner from us at the Rite Aid, that have so many doors locked up that the personal shoppers won't go there anymore because they essentially they're impossible to use. What was it? I mean, what grabbed you about that one?
Well, I mean, this is sort of again, now I'm going to go negative, Ryan, and it's frustrating because you shouldn't have to lock up deodorant and
Yeah,
toothpaste, right? And it's like a blight on our society that this is the strategy. And I'm assuming they need to have this strategy because there's just so much theft that's happening
yeah,
in these retailers, which seems to be a COVID era hangover, right? Because we know there was a lot of smash and grab stuff that happened during COVID. And I just don't like when the solution is more disruptive to the mass audience, it's not a good solution. And
yeah,
that's where
for
I'm
sure.
like, okay, how do we fix this, right? We're not going to stop criminals from being criminals. That they may have gotten a little more brazen through COVID. I think that really did happen.
Yeah,
But now, like, Ben and Ryan go shopping to buy toothpaste, and you've got to wait 17 minutes for somebody to come after you hit the button and help needed in aisle 12. Like, that's not good. And these
no,
retailers should be like panicking because I just stopped going. I just stopped
yeah.
shopping there. And I've been the guy who shopped in a very European fashion my entire life. Even when I lived in Santa Monica, I was close enough
What
to
does
a
that mean? European fashion.
I
Like what?
buy what I need and I walk, right?
I see.
So
Okay,
I
gotcha.
lived in Santa Monica. I lived close enough to a Whole Foods. I literally walked to buy my groceries and I carried them home in a bag. I'm all about efficiency. As you can see, the theme is really like if I didn't get to work out, carrying home 20 pounds of groceries, 100 yards was like at least something if I
Yeah, yeah,
didn't
for
do
sure.
something that day. And I live that way to this day. In Brooklyn, same thing. In Philadelphia, same thing. It's just how I've always shopped, and it's sort of it keeps me responsible. Like I don't buy shit that I don't need.
Yeah,
But now when I have to go to the local store, it becomes so inconvenient.
yeah.
And so this is where the scale is tipped. It's like, hey, I want to do this, but not at my own expense. And now it's becoming at my own expense. So I think they've got to solve this problem in a different way.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you should say that. I mean, I certainly agree with everything that you've said, and I, it. I just basically just changed allegiances from the right. And this, sorry guys, this is incredibly boring, but I don't care. I'm going to tell you anyway. I switched allegiances from the Rite Aid to the CVS because the Rite Aid used to be open 24 hours a day and used to have unlocked beer and ice cream cases. Not you can, obviously can't buy beer after whatever it was, but in
2
any
a.m.
case, the now the Rite Aid shuts at 10 and the beer and the ice cream is locked up, whereas the CVS is also open till 10 and you can just get the beer and the ice cream out of the
They're
case.
locking up ice cream,
Oh, dude,
dude.
ice cream was the first thing they locked up. They locked that up before they locked beer up.
Fucking
It,
hell.
yeah, it's well, but the thing. So I agree with you on all of that. I expected you to say though I'm picking this story for a different reason, which is it seems to me right like you have my LTV, my lifetime customer value as a customer for Rite Aid has just gone off a cliff, and for CVS it has rocketed up. Um, I am hard pressed to believe that the marginal loss on shrink, right, on theft, is greater than the marginal gain, or is less than the marginal loss of customer loyalty, right?
You're
So
saying
it just,
they're gonna lose more money from losing customers than they would if their stuff was getting stolen.
that's right.
Yeah.
And especially because in a situation like that, in these kind of high volume consumer product goods marketplaces where margins are not very high to begin with. Um, and so yeah, that's the thing that I can't understand. It's like who's running the math and doing the
BCG
calculations.
is running the math, and they're going in
Okay.
with a big report, and they may have said, "Hey, it's going to be better if you lose customers." But I agree with you in a
I
more
just, it's like,
practical.
it's
I
so
agree.
wild. It's and again, it's like the Rite Aid had a guy. There was a loss prevention, a security guard who would stand at the front of the store. He is gone. Where he went, I have no idea. But it seems to me like they're definitely losing more than $20 an hour in
But
loss
those
prevention
guys didn't do
salaries.
anything either. They're like fucking window dressing. They weren't actually stopping
Maybe
people
I
from
feel like it. I
stealing.
don't know. I feel that I feel like there's deterrence at a minimum. It seems crazy to me. And then you get into this discussion about, well, he can't stop anybody because of the litigious nature of American society and so on. I just, the whole thing baffles me. But I wondered whether it was you looking at it purely from a like um a customer
Like a
cost, a
P&L
P&L sense.
lens.
Yeah, exactly. And
I wasn't, but you make a really valid point. Well, it would be a horrible business decision if they're actually losing more money with this strategy. That would make it, because now they lost me as a customer, to your point, and they did. Like, there's so many stores that I just don't go to because it's so inconvenient.
yeah,
And I, if the customer's always right or the customer's always first, these are retailers that are not honoring that in any way, shape, or form. Right?
got it.
They need to figure that out. I see somebody in the mirror there.
Yeah,
I
no,
didn't know
there's
who that
some,
was.
teenagers just invaded the my recording sanctuary, aka the living room.
The living room. Yeah.
My wife is like, "Why do you record there?" I'm like, "It looks cool. Just enough." Anyway, yeah, well, that was the one, and then the other, this, there's a corollary to the Walmart story about the personal shoppers, which is Pierce Fox, who has been on the show and is a very keen observer of trends within retail. Also sent another one that you didn't pick, but was a sort of a companion to that, which was that the Walmart is essentially like Target is suffering at the moment for many of these reasons, and also from a, like, let's call it a depreciation of aesthetic value. And what Piers said to me was that many of the people who made Target look amazing have gone to Walmart, but now, and so now Walmart looks way better, but Walmart is going to struggle because people don't want to move to Bentonville. And so it's interesting because it just illustrates, like, the interrelation of these businesses, but also just like the fact that ultimately this is it's a human issue, right? It's a human problem that we have to try to
Is
deal with.
Target in Minneapolis? Where are they based?
Target is headquartered in Minneapolis. Walmart is headquartered in Bentonville, Arkansas.
I heard Bentonville is awesome, by the way. Like, I could never picture myself living there, but from what I understand, they have like a pretty, they've invested in the entire community, the
Yeah.
town itself. If you're a mountain biker, they've got, unlimited trails, and
Yep.
they've got an art gallery that, the Waltons own, but they're trying to build culture there, which is interesting.
Well, look, I mean, I've been, and Crystal Bridges, which is the art museum, is very impressive. Um, I am not a gravel biker, but it is apparently the gravel biking capital of the world now. And you're right. All of this is done with Walmart money. Um, Ultimately, it's not convincing Ryan to move there. It's not convincing Ben to move there. And I think that's ultimately what the
And we're
outrage convinces
clearly
me.
the proxy for great talent. So I get your point.
Well, I mean, just look at our LinkedIn posts. All you have to do is that, and then right? Velocity is a strategy.
Hey,
Proxy for, yeah.
Walmart, give us a call if you
Yeah.
need some consulting, we're available.
Exactly. We are available to consult Walmart. Do you that was a question that I did have, particularly because the other viral LinkedIn story of the last 2 weeks was this guy Massimo Giunco's post about Nike, and now where the crisis has happened, the epic value destruction at Nike. Um, one of the underlying points there is that the pivot that Nike took to eliminate wholesale partners and to be more DTC was a big driver of that decision. You started out DTC. To what extent are you guys moving? Is Jolie moving into a space where you're like heavy up with wholesale partners? Obviously, the Saks thing notwithstanding, like how much of that has to become your mix, and how much of it can be sort of
Yeah.
directional?
As a founder of what was, coined a D2C industry, right? And I was the first sneaker brand to be D2C. That was a failed experiment because D2C is a distribution channel, not a business model. And I think that lesson has sort of been learned.
Yeah.
Jolie has always been an omni-channel business, although we weren't in a retailer day one.
Okay.
It's like, hey, we're launching online, and by the time the end of the year, we're going to make sure we have some
Got it.
retail presence, which we
Yeah,
accomplished.
and because I knew you from day minus
Yeah,
180 or
negative
something like that.
100,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. Okay, now I
But
understand.
in terms of like the percentage of the business, it's still relatively small. It's sub 10%, growing really rapidly. But my guess is, even at massive scale, and we think Jolie will do, I've shared this before, so what I'm about to say is not sort of controversial. We're going to do somewhere between 45 and $50 million this year. And we know we will be doing hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue over the next few years.
Yeah.
And even at that level of scale, I don't think we'll be more than 35% of, of wholesale.
Right.
And what wholesale is really good at, and this sort of gets back into like, what's the value of the account on the P&L from a dollar sense, and what's the value of account from the overall presence of the brand, and how does
Right.
that affect your CAC on your digital side, and how does that affect all that essentially. And it's usually a positive effect. It's sort of being in stores validates a lot of brands, or most brands, and the consumer has a different level of comfort. It's psychological,
Yeah,
but
yeah, for sure.
it's real. It's a real thing. I can't measure it, but we just see businesses improve when they have the right mix of wholesale.
Right. Yeah, that makes total sense to me. As an aside, you just said a word that set off a chain of thoughts and a slight pivot from in my thinking, but I wanted to ask you about this too. So you said presence, right? Presence. The wholesale account gives you presence in the real world and validates the authenticity or the authority or the desirability of the brand in a channel that you don't own, and therefore people can put some level of faith in that they can't simply in the one that you own and control. Presence used to be what influencer marketing was called at Nike, at Adidas, at all of these places, the kind of the companies that were leading culture marketers that, as you and I sort of came up in the business. It has stopped being presence marketing, and I wonder why. Because what presence marketing encourages you to do is be thinking about all of your touch points horizontally and how you are present in them, as opposed to how am I verticalized through a single sort of touch point, a single customer relationship. I wonder if I realize it's
Has
out of
it
nowhere,
has
but I
it
wonder if you've ever thought
stopped?
about that.
Well, I haven't. Although I've thought about it, but not through the language you just used,
Yeah, sure.
because we don't use presence as a term in our business. But what you're talking about, we talk about all the time.
Sure.
How do we show up in these places? We don't necessarily have a vertical or horizontal. We just sort of have, this is what Pro Salon Channel looks like. This is what, potential. I'm making this up now. Home Depot might look like. This is what Costco might look like.
Sure.
This is what Nordstrom looks like. Saks, etc. And then when
Erewhon.
you mix all, Erwan, yep, which is one of our best accounts in every way, right? We have great retail value and just P&L value there, as
Sure.
well as presence in the market. It just
Yeah.
punches above its weight class.
Yeah.
They have 10 stores, but that's because everyone is so good at retailing that the people from Target go there, and the people from Walmart go there, and the people
Yeah.
from
Yeah. Yeah.
all Neiman Marcus go there, and they go, wow, this is such an amazing store, right? That's when you're doing it right. Like when you can influence retailers
The
way
rest of your
outside of
sector.
your
Yeah.
exactly. It's not Ralph's looks at it, but they that when fashion looks at your store, you've done something miraculous.
Yeah.
So yeah, we think about that a lot. We just don't use that term presence
Yeah.
in that regard.
I wonder maybe if we can bring it back with this pod, not necessarily through, just through force of will. We're going to bring back presence marketing.
Dude, you can do anything you put your mind to, Ben. I am sure of that.
I'm planning on it. My mind.
You just got to pick one. Just pick one idea and go for it.
That's my problem.
That's a hard part. That's the hard part.
My problem. I got a lot of ideas.
Ah.
Well, okay. So let's talk about one of the other ones that you picked out, which less operational, as I said earlier, but I thought was interesting, which was the Man in Finance. This is a piece in the Atlantic, set off by Megan Boney's viral TikTok piece about how she was looking for a man in finance to start the summer. Became a hit song. She got signed to a record deal.
Was that a song? Can we say that's a song? Is it a verse?
In the original TikTok video, she repeated the words, and the caption was, "Did I just make the song of the summer?" So it was introduced into the popular consciousness as song-like, if nothing else, and then it became a song very quickly. But what was it about that piece that grabbed you?
Well, the idea of the song.
Okay.
Like you, I'm fascinated by trend movements, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when you can take a thing that she probably made almost as a joke in a half hour, and then become like covered on national news or at CNN. That's a fascinating event, right? And now she's represented by some agency, and they think she's going to go on to recreate this again. She's not. No offense to her, I don't know her, but it doesn't work that way. You're sort of like replicating this. You can't replicate virality. Everybody's tried for 20 years. It's very difficult, if not impossible. But it fascinates me, and I'm always like, wow, we made a bunch of TikToks like using that track, and God, oh yeah, like just because that's what the kids do. They just sort of take whatever's trending and loop it over whatever you're making. So we didn't change the video piece, but the track was sort of a trending track, and we used the track, and we had value out of it. But where it's interesting to me is like the marry rich phenomenon is not new, nor do I think it ever went away. And this was just a moment of bringing like a brighter spotlight to what has been a tried and true strategy for, I'm not even going to say women. I think men and women marry for money all the time.
Absolutely.
For millennia.
I've seen Bridgerton. I know what's going on.
Yeah, you know what's going on. It was for, sometimes it's arranged. Sometimes it's just going to the right restaurant and seeing who's got the nicest watch. And this is where what's old is new again. And I'm always like, man, this isn't a new idea. She just put a funny TikTok to it. So that is what struck me about it, where I think media today likes to constantly think they're writing about something new, and it's so not new. It is so not fresh. I have a love-hate relationship with media as a person that is sometime interviewed by the media or brand that's covered by the media.
Sure.
And when we do, they just fucking get it wrong. Even when we like literally type it out for them because they make their own opinions. And, that's what sort of struck me about that. And like they were like writing it like it's a new thing and it's an old thing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I guess what is new about it both is the mechanism by which the topic gets uncovered and explored, and also I think you hit on something, which is that it is not a new notwithstanding the like whatever the trad wife dimension that you want to add into it, right? Is but it is not a new story. Marry rich as a strategy, not a new story, but um, the speed at which these things cycle through culture both makes the last time that story came up feel really far away, and also um, throws another set of heroes up the pop chart in terms of people covering it, right? Like it feels like the adults in the room to a certain degree have been told you don't need to remind the kids that this is an old story. Like
Yeah. Well,
just let them rock. Just
yeah,
let them
let them
rock.
roll. Let them believe it's new. It's like
Yeah.
when your mom or I remember like we'd wear something and my mom would be like, "I wore that in high school. That isn't a new style. That's like when I was in high school." And we were like, "What are you talking?" It's that. Yes, we're at that age now where just let the kids rock. Let them rock.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Like you and I, one thing, and not to get personal, but you and I, of course, both have children, and we are who are at very different ages, right? Your son is quite a bit younger than either of my
Yeah,
kids,
he'll be 3 in October. He's quite a bit younger.
right? So to what extent are you letting him rock? I mean, are you
A
is
hundred percent he's rocking hard, like so hard. He yeah, no, he's living his best life, Ben. He's at sport time right now with his nanny, riding
okay?
his scooter.
I like
But he
it.
was at camp this morning. He'll have swim class tonight. So the dude's doing a lot. He's got his
Okay.
full day. He was at the beach this morning.
Do
So
to what?
he
Okay, so but how much of that is? I mean, do you? And I wonder partially because it's like we are of a certain age and come from a certain sort of cultural experience of upbringing. To what extent do you feel like you are programming those things for him, and to what extent are they things that he has expressed in whatever limited way a 3-year-old can express an interest in doing?
Yeah, well, definitely it's part programming, but like, what's the healthy programming for a child that's 3 years old, right? Like, they've got to be active, they got to
Yep.
discover new things. So to that degree, we're like setting the stage, but then it's like we put him in a soccer thing, he hated it, so that was that. We don't
Right.
expose him to sports, right, which is a unique thing. Having been an athlete and still pretty active, I don't program. He doesn't watch. We don't have television. We don't watch television around him. So unlike most of my peers, where sports were on the TV all the time, and then therefore that kid was all of a sudden like wanting to play baseball, tennis, football, whatever the thing was. This
Right.
kid hasn't watched a televised sport yet in his life. So, and
Not
at
even
some
ray
point
gun.
he what?
Not even ray gun. In the
What?
Olympics, the Australian breakdancer.
Nope, didn't see it. Although that was, I mean, I wish you put a story about that because that was just a disservice to the skill of breakdancing. um,
I mean,
but no, anyway, yeah, I would say some of it's programmed, but as a parent, you know this, you try to give them things that are healthy and productive without being programmatic.
right, right. Well, because and look, the reason I thought of it and the reason I asked is because I think to a certain degree there have been many stories, and there was one in the New York Post that my wife sent me over during the week because we are getting Campbell ready to go to college, and so we're like buying shit that he needs for his dorm room or whatever. And there's a story in the Post about essentially helicopter parents who are stocking their kids up in just incredible ways for their dorm rooms or for back to school or whatever it is, essentially so that they can flex on their social media for their own
Yeah, no,
purposes.
that's horrible. That to
I
me, I don't think
I
that's good parenting.
well, I agree, but I wonder to what extent you're it's like to what extent you as especially as he's gotten older, like to what extent you find yourself falling along the lines of like I got to tell him what to do versus like I got to let him discover what
I
he needs to do
think
himself.
we're I again we're trying to toe the line between you've got to be respectful, have manners, can't be wiling out.
Yeah, yeah,
At
yeah.
the same time, you've got to be able to like discover, fall, experiment, and learn, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So What is the balance between that? I think that's sort of what we strive for. I have no idea where we are on the spectrum of achieving our desired outcome. But
Well,
maybe you'll meet him soon again, or you've met him before. But when you see him next time, maybe you can be like, "Yeah, you're failing horribly on the on the."
Ryan, listen, let me, you got to pull up here. Just take it easy. Yeah. Well, I look forward to seeing him. I look forward to seeing him again at some point soon. And then, okay, so I want to ask another question, which is, when you're not out east, you're now residing in the sixth borough of New York, Philadelphia.
Is that what it's called?
No,
I've
I
not
don't know.
heard
But all
that.
of these, this is, again, just all of these things are all New York Magazine stories, basically. But it's like there was a story talking about how Philly had become the sixth borough of New York, and I went to college there, as you know, and I feel I am very fond of Philadelphia. I think it's great. Scott Galloway said something on his podcast today, which was that Philly. He was talking about Urban Outfitters, which is headquartered in Philly, and he was saying that Philly is 60 to 80%. He said it was the old Navy of cities, which he meant in a good way, which is that it was 60 to 80% of the experience of New York City at 40 to 60% of the cost.
I love Galloway, dude. I haven't listened to that today yet.
Yeah.
But that's really accurate.
I mean, as he said it, I was just like, yeah, I disagree with Old Navy just from a brand positioning standpoint. And I am not sure about those percentages and the accuracy of the percentage. I tend to think that the difference between what is acceptable and what is superlative is actually a much smaller percentage than 40%, like a 40% swing.
Yeah, I cannot say the percentages are accurate or not, but I think I
Well,
understand the point.
that's what I brought you here for, is I wanted you to give me accurate percentages on.
Well, I don't have those, but I understand the sentiment. And what I would agree with is you have great culture in Philadelphia. You
Yeah.
have art, music, food, education, diversity, and it is less expensive, right?
Yeah.
So you just, as a guy that grew up in Long Island and then lived in two cities my whole life, Santa Monica specifically,
Right.
and New York, Brooklyn more specifically, those are not inexpensive places to live.
Yeah.
We did not move to Philadelphia for the cost savings of lifestyle, and that's a separate conversation. However, we were willing to move to Philadelphia because it had 60, I'm going to just use 60% of the things we needed. And, when you think about New York, New York's is great. It's the greatest city in the
In the world.
world.
Yeah.
And I accessed like 2% of it on a regular basis. Like
Right.
once we had a kid, it wasn't like I was going out to eat every fucking night like I did forever, which is why New York was great for me. Or I wasn't going out to any bars. I wasn't going out late. I wasn't doing any of those things. I wasn't going to museums every day. So you start to say, well, I'm not using
Yeah.
the city as it should be. And truthfully, most people don't. We get into our very little small neighborhood bubble for the most part. And every once in a while you get on the L train and you venture into the city for an event and you get home by 11 o'clock.
Right.
I did that. I've gotten a lot out of New York and I no longer needed what it was offering, nor was I using it. Right. So I almost felt guilty. So,
Right. That's interesting.
Philadelphia was a really sort of, again, we moved there for different reasons. Strategic made a lot of sense for us to do it. It's not a permanent move, but we're truly enjoying it. I'm not like, I can honestly say I enjoy living there. And you know me, if I didn't, I'd be like, yeah, I fucking hate it. I'm there for whatever I'm there for, but it sucks.
Yeah.
It does not suck.
No, well, and I of course knew that you would like it when you told me you were moving, because Philadelphia is great. So, in any case, just
But
wanted
why
to
don't you
return
live there?
return.
Why don't you live there?
Well, because strategically right now it doesn't make sense for us to live here with the kids, with a kid in high school and so close to big life stage changes. Let's have this conversation in 3 years and see.
All right.
I'll come and join you.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome to come down anytime you want. It's an
All
hour
right.
and 5 minutes on the Acela train. I should be the spokesperson for moving to Philly.
I mean, I got a couple other friends who are right there in the bucket with you. But anyway, all right. Well,
I
listen,
love it.
you now that you've been promoted to spokesperson of Philly, I think we can find time to wrap this. But Ryan, listen, I mean, this, like I said, the conversation's been a long time coming, but I'm really pleased we got to talk. Thanks for taking the time to do it. And I don't know, I'm looking forward to more of your LinkedIn leadership, generosity as a strategy, growing business success, operational focus. But more so, I'm just looking forward to more elegance in business and operations. So
We need more elegance in our lives.
all right, dude. Listen, we'll talk again soon. But in the meantime, thanks again. And thanks everybody for listening.
Thanks.